All right. Oh, yes.
Oh,
Okay. So that being said, Jenny, I'm gonna pitch it off to you and you can introduce and take control from here. Jenny's gonna be our moderator. Just take it away, Jenny.
yeah, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining in and I guess watching us learn how to use this platform for better or for worse. So we have a very exciting first speaker, the very first person to hold this position at the state of Connecticut. So everyone should be super excited about that. We have Alfredo come to talk to us, the new GIO, and he's gonna do a killer presentation and hopefully do a killer job at making GIS the best it can be in Connecticut. So everyone give him a warm welcome. And here we go. Take it away, Alfredo.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alfredo Herrera. I am the first and new GIO for the state of Connecticut. I've been on the job for a little over almost 2 months now. Yeah, so I was formerly with the city of New Haven. I was the GIS person there for 5 years. And before that, I was with New England Geosystems. So that's kind of my background there. So what does being the GIO of the state of Connecticut means? That's a really good question that I'm still trying to figure out at this point. So far has been a lot of coordination and talking to people, kind of getting a sense of where everybody's at and kind of what the needs are within the state agencies and things like that. I have had some communications, conversations with certain folks outside the state organization to kind of figure out what some of those external needs are. If anyone needs to talk to me, just reach out. I'm sure that I won't be hard to get a hold of. So I guess I'll kind of go into some of my priorities and where I'm thinking as far as what I want to do initially. First is aerial imagery capture. That's something that the GIS community is usually pretty hot about. So the good news there is that thanks to the ARPA bill, we have some funding for this. We have enough funding and we have allocated funds for 2 upcoming flights, the first one being in 2023, trying to use the 2016 aerial as the kind of gold standard, so that it will be at least 3 inches per pixel for both the orthoimagery and the LiDAR. We are looking to also derive the contours and building footprints. There we go. So the building footprints as a derived product, and then the thing that we're going to kind of add beyond that, because we've already kind of we would have collected and purchased that data, is to actually build a 3D base map that can just be integrated into anyone's GIS. So we're just going to do that whole thing statewide and save everybody the trouble. We may or may not, depending on how the funding plays out and how much the cost of the flight is and how many matching funds we get, may be able to kind of do some kind of upgrades to it, mainly like possibly getting other planimetric products like pavements and things like that, other structures, and additionally may, depending on how once again how the budget plays out, we may be able to do the obliques as well, but I'm not holding my breath for that. I'm not holding my breath for that particularly.
Alfredo, quick question for you. This is Mike.
Sure.
I just want to confirm.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going through notes on your second screen that you have, or do you have a PowerPoint slides?
No, I do not. I do not have.
Okay, just wanted to check.
I just have the comments on the second side and then kind of seeing things as they pop up, and it catches my attention sometimes. Gotcha. Sorry.
No problem. Just want to make sure you were sharing your screen if you wanted to. All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yep. Yeah. So after that, I think the next priorities are to have a OPM kind of GIS office open data site. So the open data site is kind of like a way to kind of bridge all of the state agencies' open data, in particular, like the one Greg is about to show in a little while, the one from DEP, the stuff from UConn, and any other state agencies that need to present data. My goal is to kind of be the catch-all for it and have a open data site in parallel with the existing Socrata non-spatial open data site for the state, and have this one be the geospatial open data site for the entire state, with all the authoritative GIS data sets kind of housed within there, but not necessarily hosting all of those data sets. It would just kind of federate out into those other open data sites from the constituent agencies. The next item after that would be, I'm thinking, I lost my train of thought, I'm sorry. Oh, right. So continuing the parcel standards and the CAMA standards. So the CAMA standards are very well underway. That started and happened essentially before I arrived. So we are going to be issuing the collection for the 2022 parcel submission to OPM fairly soon. Once again, my understanding is that the parcel standards for that have been revised a little bit and improved. So hopefully that'll go a little bit better and a little bit smoother and have a better attribution. After that, we're looking to create a standard land use categorization scheme that individual municipalities would then kind of do a translation of each of their own land use categories into those statewide categories, so that when they submit the data, they send us both. So that way, when we publish the parcels, that is going to be a way for people that use this data to kind of compare apples to apples on the land use front. Then beyond that, another one, the kind of thing that there's two more things. One is I'm wanting to do something similar for the zoning, even though I know that's a bit more contentious and possibly more difficult. However, I think that's something that we can do mostly for the ability to kind of do analyses and comparisons region-wide and statewide. That's something that I see as a big limitation at the moment, the way it's configured. And then the last one is, the way I'm going to say this is going to sound controversial, but it's less controversial than it actually is parcel drafting quality standards. So this is more like a set of guidelines and kind of answering questions for specific scenarios. So this is more kind of like, like what happens when you get a survey to update a parcel on a town boundary? Like what happens if this boundary itself was part of that survey, or what if the boundary itself was not part of that survey? These set of guidelines would kind of seek to answer those questions, to kind of create a standardized way of kind of dealing with these scenarios, so that we can then improve the quality of the parcels, but also the administrative boundaries in the state, to the point where, everybody has contributed to the point that everybody's kind of happy with them, because I know there are certain places around the state that they're pretty awful, at least in the way they're represented digitally. To that point, I know, and Greg could probably speak to this, there are some efforts within DOT to kind of improve the visual accuracy of the administrative boundaries, the cartographic accuracy of the administrative boundaries of the state. So once that layer is completed, we would kind of do some additional work to kind of make those more available and more useful and usable in a few different ways. We can get into that later once that's a little bit closer to completion. And then the last one is I'm trying to create a statewide geolocator using the statewide E911 address points and a combination of the public safety and the DOT center line. There is some work to do on the center line to kind of get that into shape so that we can actually use that for that purpose. But I think I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to get there. So one of the things that we're looking to do is kind of help out Dan Jaya over at DESP to kind of make sure that he gets the changes he needs in a more timely manner so that we can keep the state E911 address point layer up to date and make that then in turn make that layer much more available to everyone so that that is a resource for everyone throughout the state. I know that like when I was in New Haven, the whole address point thing was a bit of a pain point for me. So that's one of those things that now that I have the ability to do something about it, I'm going to try to do something about it. And then I guess the last thing is the GIS Advisory Council. So we have all but one of the seats filled on it. We're just waiting on one appointment from the General Assembly. We are planning to meet in mid-March and probably talk about some of these more standardsy things that I've been mentioning. I'm pretty sure I've reached out and had an initial conversation with everyone on the council. So we're kind of on the same page. And like I said, we'll probably be meeting mid-March and then having some breakouts from there. One of the ways in which that council is going to work, at least the way I see it for now, is we're just going to get together and talk about certain issues, things that might come up here and then kind of float up to the surface to that council. So I see this group also as of vital importance, and the subcommittees and data standards committees in this group as of vital importance, because they're kind of like, there's already a set in place infrastructure for discussing these things and working through these issues. So why not just leverage that instead of dissolve it? So yeah, I think those are probably like the big key points that I kind of wanted to share, and I guess we can open it up to questions.
Great, thanks, Alfredo. Oh, sorry, Jenny, take it away. I'm such a ham.
So if anyone has any questions, please take a moment right now to either drop them in the chat or the Q&A box, so you guys can all watch my stellar real-time reading skills.
They can also raise a hand and we can enable them to
Oh,
speak.
you can do that too. Look at that. We got 3 different platforms you can use to ask questions. Cutting edge.
So I have a question, just
Sure.
to get it
Please.
kick started. So what is your GIS team going to look like? Are you expecting to expand staff? What do you currently have?
Yeah, so what I currently have is one staff member. His name is David Lukens. He is the broadband mapping coordinator. So he's in charge of all of the broadband mapping initiatives. That's the one thing I kind of forgot to mention that we're already working on. Where we're at with that is we are drafting the letter to kind of send to the ISPs to kind of get their granular data so that we can actually create a statewide I guess state of broadband in Connecticut, if you will, map. We do have a deadline on that one of December 1st. So that's something that we're going to have to, there's a lot of time, but there's also not a lot of time to kind of get that one done, because there's a lot of moving pieces and there's a lot of data cleaning and things like that. So we are still kind of formulating a game plan, but one of the first things that we had to do was kind of start talking to the providers and get out a letter of request to kind of say, this is what we want and this is how we want it. So far, these communications have been going pretty well, and with the ISPs haven't kind of balked too much at some of the changes that where we've deviated from the FCC's requests. As far as the additional staff, we're probably looking to hire most likely 2 other people, kind of a more senior position to kind of really help with some of the coordinating and map creation. and then a more kind of junior analyst to kind of do a lot of mapping and heavy lifting kind of work.
All right, and for the network, where would they find these job posts? Will be sharing them on the listserv? You got the
Yes,
state website, and okay.
yes, all of the above.
Stay tuned, folks. Looking for a new job, you can work with Alfredo.
LinkedIn, right? We're gonna beef up our
Yes.
LinkedIn presence.
Yes, I will be sure to put it there as well.
All right.
We have one question in the Q&A box. What is the progress on broadband?
Well, I think I just went over that. So
Yeah.
the progress on broadband, I mean, like, we're compiling a list. We've actually been making a lot of maps, mostly for some of the internal folks. I mean, in the Office of Consumer Counsel and DEP that are kind of be the key players that are going to be allocating both ARPA and IIJA funds. So like for the short term, we are kind of producing some preliminary maps using the 477 data, knowing full well that that's kind of incomplete and not as good as we would like it. But part of this process and us collecting the data directly from the providers and various other sources is we're going to use that to challenge the FCC maps and say, hey, this isn't right here, and let us show you why. So that's kind of part of our game plan as well.
Alrighty, next question. Early on, it was said that the governor was very intent on using GIS for economic development for the state. Have you met with or spoken with or been approached by his staff yet?
I have had a tangential conversation with some of them. An initial conversation with one member of his staff. It was in the context of the broadband stuff, but we had a follow up afterwards just to kind of have an initial meeting. But I have not yet had a more formal conversation with anyone on his team yet, but I'm sure that's coming.
Next one. Do you see the GIS networks adopted standards being implemented / supported at the state level?
I guess the blanket answer is probably yes. Obviously, I would have to kind of review them on a case by case basis to make sure they're kind of consistent with the things that I'm looking to do. But by and large, the answer is probably going to be yes.
Then the next one. Who are the members on the advisory committee?
Give me just a second to pull that up because I don't remember off the top of my head.
And we could probably send that out on the listserv later too. I don't think there's any reason we can't, right?
Yeah, no, not that I have. Yeah.
All right, I'll make a note of that.
Yeah. So we'll just send that out later so everyone's aware. Alfredo did say there was one position still open, or one member you guys are waiting to be appointed.
Yeah. And one note about the advisory committee that I forgot to mention earlier. One of the kind of seats I did add kind of unofficially is state IT. I felt it was important to have them in the room just so that they can at least voice any concerns that they might have or know that things are coming.
And for those of you that don't know, the state IT is being centralized and it's going to be called BITS moving forward. So if anyone refers to BITS, that's what it is.
Yeah, so I have asked them to participate. At the very least, they're going to be a kind of listening only member, but I'm still trying to work out how to formalize that relationship since the council was codified with legislation. So I have to figure out how to, officially add them because I think it's important for them to be involved.
Yes. And I think they're going to start, which correct me if I'm wrong, I believe they're going to start that consolidation process the next few months too. So for those of you that don't, oh, there we go. Fred has it in there. Bureau of Information Technology Services, right? Greg, is that right? He'll know.
That's right. That's right.
Yep. All right. Our next question is, did I hear there were 2 aerial flights planned, one in 2023? Is there a second one planned for a later date, or did I mishear that?
No, that's right. There is a second one planned with the same deliverables for 2026 at the moment.
Alrighty, moving on to the next. What sort of assistance or information are you looking for from the state agencies?
Short answer is yes. I'm just, at
All
this
of the
point,
above.
yeah, all of the above. Really, I'm looking to kind of, so it's not even so much assistance to me, but also how can I help you and how can I establish connections between the agencies? I see part of my job in a certain way to kind of, at least on the geospatial front, to kind of de-silo a little bit, especially on the data front, and make data sets that are used all the time in one agency that are available to be shared with outside of that agency available to everyone else. And everything that can be made public to be made public so that it's all, everybody is on the same footing. So I think it's just, if anybody hasn't talked to me yet, kind of one-on-one from an agency I haven't reached out to yet, please reach out. I'm on board and looking to have more of these conversations and see how I can help and be helped by everyone in the state government.
So our next one, can you just kind of quickly go over the geocoder based off the 911 data again? Someone missed it because they came in late.
Yeah, sure. So the plan is to use the E911 address points layer that is managed by Dan Jair over at DESP as the primary basis for a statewide geolocator. And then the other part of the equation there is the center line used by, so there are two sets of center lines that are somewhat official or somewhat complete in the state. One is the one from DESP that Dan Jaya also maintains, and then the other one is the one from DOT, which Greg and his team maintain. The hope is to kind of integrate the two of those and create a single authoritative center line for the state. There are things there are maybe roads and private roads in particular on the DESP one that are not included in the DOT one, which the reason to use the DOT one is because it's spatially a lot more accurate. And then the other part that's important to kind of get out of the DESP center line, which is going to be the trickier thing to do, is the address ranges from that center line. The challenge there is that center line has a very archaic licensing agreement from TomTom attached to it. So there are some challenges there to kind of figure out how to kind of get it released to the point that we can create a derived product. But I will say that we have started conversations with TomTom to kind of figure that out and kind of see where we can, how far we can get with that. And hopefully we'll be able to kind of release it enough to be able to kind of pull out the address ranges from the DESP center line and include them into the DOT center line, and then have one center line going forward that gets maintained by both groups together. What those mechanics are going to look like, we haven't decided yet, but that's the hope and the plan.
Right, thank you. We have a few more questions. What will the role played by region? Oh, I think I might have read words out of. I'm going to start over. What will be the role played by the regions in your proposed projects?
The regions.
I'm assuming the COGs is what they mean by that.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's guess the COGs for now. They can clarify with another question.
Yeah, so the COGs are going to, once again, they're going to be vitally important because I think that's going to be the most effective way to communicate with the municipalities. A lot of the data in the state is kind of generated and maintained by the municipalities. In one aspect, say the parcels are all the responsibilities of each municipality to a certain degree. And as well as the creation of addressing. So my hope and plan here is to help leverage the ability of the COGs to communicate with their constituents, to kind of roll that up for us and kind of ease the communication to all of the constituent municipalities and other groups that are out there. So yeah, I intend to leverage their capacity as much as I can and as much as makes sense too.
All right, Mike. Mike's hands up. Are you building off this question?
No, but I do have a question I wanted to ask that just popped in my mind. I was curious, Alfredo, if you have any ideas of like resistance that you might expect trying to implement some of your projects. Just as an example, like I know when we wanted to standardize CAMA data, there's some resistance from assessors who might not know what the extent of the project is and what our intentions are. And
Yeah.
so I don't know, for some of your projects, do you expect resistance, and what would those, the kind of who's that resistance, and what are those projects? Maybe there's ways we can help.
Yeah, I don't. I think most of these things that I'm trying to do are, various degrees of controversial. I think a lot of it is kind of, some of these things are kind of like, I'm doing this to help the people that are going to be doing additional work. So, it's a lot of kind of trying to remind people that the derived product that you are contributing to is going to save you a massive amount of time and effort. So if you do your part, you're going to end up with a better end product. I think where I expect to see, maybe not specifically resistance, but at least a lot of questions and a lot of back and forth, is probably going to be with the zoning and the parcel drafting kind of guidelines that I'm thinking of. I don't know that I would what I am anticipating I would classify as resistance per se, but more as kind of seeking clarification, and then just like the intense back and forth process of figuring out what it's actually going to look like.
Very good.
All
Thanks.
right. Moving on to the next one. What is the Geospatial Council website going? Oh, when is the Geospatial Council website going to be updated?
Soon. We're working on that. There's a lot of moving pieces. So we'll have to, we have reached out to BITS to kind of for some help with that, but we have to kind of update the language and go through that effort. So yeah, that is coming. It's just a matter of time. Hopefully I'll have it up before the advisory council meeting meets, and so yeah.
Alrighty. So this next question kind of relates back to the geocoder question.
Mm-hmm.
Will that work with the town CAD systems? I would imagine building it off the state 911 layer is what they're referring to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, my hope is to make this as kind of universally adoptable as possible. If there are certain needs in certain places, I mean, obviously we wouldn't want to make like 169 different versions of the thing, but if we have to at least provide, so here's the thing, the supporting data for this geocoder is going to be available via the various open data portals. So if someone needs a specific combination or kind of configuration of the geocoder for a particular CAD implementation, then the source data is there for them to kind of produce that. Our hope is to create make the address points available, make the center line available, and then make a geocoder as a service available. So that is kind of my plan for that, and hopefully that's going to be sufficient for like the vast majority of people. But like I said, if there's an edge case that needs kind of our help to kind of get there, then we'll kind of work that as on a case-by-case basis.
Awesome, thank you. We have one more question. This will be our last question, then we need to head into the next presentation. All right, Miriam, you're really going to test my reading skills here. It's long. The GIO job description included working as part of the data and policy analytics unit at OPM along the state's chief data officer. Could you please share how much interaction is happening with the data team and which collaborative or GIS centric initiatives you believe will launch in short term? You can see the question, right, Alfredo?
No, actually, I didn't see that one.
All right, I can copy and paste in the chat so everyone could see it.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So,
Right.
yeah, the short answer to that is daily. I talk to Scott pretty much daily. We have weekly meetings with the rest of the DAPA team. That is the unit that I am housed within, organizationally within OPM. Yeah, I mean, the integration there with the general data team is super tight, and we've been working together to kind of produce different things for both the existing data portal, and just have input and kind of cleaning up things and all of that. So like the short answer is daily and very, very tight integration.
Well, thank you, Alfredo. That is it. Thanks for coming to talk to the GIS User Network. We're all extremely excited to have you here and can't wait to see what you do moving forward.
Thank you. Like I said before, if anybody needs to reach out that wants to have a conversation about whatever topic, just reach out. I will put my email in the chat, and you can just reach me that way.
And we'll probably also put your contact information on the GIS User Network website too, with everyone else's.
Yeah, that's fine.
See, we're out of time. Okay. I was gonna say there's a hand up, but with Miriam, but we gotta move ahead.
Yeah. If we have time after, we'll get to it, Miriam, I promise. Or Greg, you want her to go quick?
I was gonna say, let no question go unanswered.
All right, you got 30 seconds, Miriam. Go for it. Greg can unmute you.
I gotta unmute her, yeah.
Oh,
she said she didn't mean to raise her hand.
Oh, okay.
Never mind.
False alarm.
She's keeping us on our toes. All right, so our next presenter is the one and only Greg Ciparelli. He's my boss, so everyone has to be nice to him. Otherwise, I'm gonna come and hunt you down and make you present at one of the next meetings. So Greg,
Pretty much exactly what you did here.
I did. I made him present, so the threat is very valid, and I made Moataz present too. So, so Greg is the head of the Aegis unit at the CTDOT. So he's going to talk to you a little bit about our open data portal that we launched a few months ago, but since then we've added a lot of cool data sets and we really improved it. So everyone put your hats on and get ready. Take it away, Greg.
Thanks, Jenny. I feel like I'm walking into like a WWE ring or something. Let me share my screen here too. Let me know when you guys can see it. All good? Did it work? Am I sharing the right one?
You are
I see it.
Not
Do
the
you see the-
presentation view.
Yeah, but you see the
Yeah.
presenter view,
Are
right?
you in the notes?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Give me one more second.
Doing great, Greg.
I'm a Teams guy, not a Zoom guy. I got to be honest with you. All right, that's the right one, right?
Hasn't loaded yet. Oh, yep, we're good to go.
There we go. Much better. All right. Hi, everybody. Before I even start, I'm here today to talk about kind of the Enterprise Data Development Initiative at CONDOT. And what Jenny kind of alluded to too is kind of the recent launch, relatively recent launch of our open data hub site to provide easier access to data and applications that the DOT has developed. Did want to circle back a little bit to something that Alfredo mentioned as well, which is the town boundary layer, just to give a little more, because it's not really a part of this presentation, but I did want to bring it up. We do have staff of mine, Eric Glover, who's been kind of involved in GIS for arguably the longest of anybody at DOT. Our staff is really young. He's gone through, he's been matching up some of the parcel information from some of the COGs. He's been looking at kind of DEEP's existing town boundary layer. He's been going through cleaning up along the coastlines and kind of going up into some of the estuaries and things like that, so that it's a clean cartographic rendering of what we consider to be kind of like a great visual representation of where the town boundaries are in the state. If everyone is kind of familiar with the history of Connecticut, the town boundaries themselves are kind of a see no evil, hear no evil type thing, where you just kind of look away and everyone, there's 8 or 9 different layers out there. They're all slightly different. I know when we were looking through and doing an analysis, some of those boundaries were off by a couple of feet. Some of them are off by upwards of 1,100, 1,200 feet discrepancy between different layers. So just kind of getting together a single cartographic rendering that, at least from a state agency perspective, we would all use, and ideally a lot of the rest of the members of the GIS community would use, has kind of been our goal with that. Eric has been working with Den Chai over at DESP, Stu DeLand over at Deep, Eric Lindquist up at OPM to kind of get some feedback on some of the methodology that he's using. But as we get closer and further along, and Alfredo kind of said this, we'll reach out more once we have something that looks a little bit more like a final product. It's been a little bit of a time-consuming task, but we're getting close to the finish line. So we're excited about having that be available, and kind of leading right in, it would become available right on our open data hub. So for any DOT is become an Esri shop over the last couple of years. A lot of our stuff had kind of been homegrown, home developed. Initially, we were using some Bentley products that had some GIS capabilities, but we did enter an enterprise license agreement 2 years ago with Esri to kind of start taking advantage of all the things that Esri products bring to us. So we are using their hub site technology for our open data hub, but I do want to give you a little bit of background on kind of the enterprise development, so you can have some confidence in the data that's coming from DOT as well. So overall, as I'm going to go through, there's going to be an overview of the TED and open data architecture, some of the benefits of what we're doing with TED, what we see as the benefits, how we're practicing some internal data governance, and how we're kind of pushing things towards open data. We'll go through a little bit of the data and application availability, do a quick demonstration. I think a lot of the people on this call are relatively familiar with WebGIS, so and have used other hub sites like Deeps. So it's very, very similar. One of the main benefits of using this type of technology is that there's a similar look and feel and kind of operation across these sites. And then we'll open it up for kind of questions, comments, and discussion. So what was TED and what is the Open Data Initiative at Connecticut DOT? We kind of have a collective vision because there's a lot of information at the DOT coming from a wide variety of staff and sections of the DOT, multiple people possibly editing the same physical asset in the field, but all that information is important. So we wanted to kind of optimize the flow of that information against the geospatial environment. And then our mission for all this was to create and make accessible a lot more of this information. A lot of it had been internally difficult to obtain, which means that it's just exponentially more difficult for any external partners to obtain. So making it where we can provide it to our internal staff and to any other stakeholders, and that up to and includes the general public, was kind of our mission. There was an executive order issued back in 2014 under the Malloy administration that kind of established our chief data officer position, established our open data hub, our open data site. That's the Socrata-based one that Alfredo was referencing, and kind of started talking about stated agencies being more transparent and providing more and easier access to their data. This open data hub that we've developed kind of offers the DOT that opportunity. So this actually goes back a few years when DOT in particular started taking its management of its data a lot more seriously. So the GIST is the GIS for transportation conference that takes place every single year. AASHTO, obviously the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials. The AASHTO president was there, he gave the keynote, and one of the things that kind of stuck out to Connecticut DOT was something that he said, and he said, I don't think construction of infrastructure is our primary role anymore. We're now facilitators of information. So whereas we are kind of letting projects out onto the road, making changes to kind of improve safety or improve access or improve economic development, whatever the DOT is kind of having as a purpose and need of the projects, it's not just the administration of the projects anymore. We need to make sure that we're managing and facilitating the passing of information, both within the project phase, but also after the project phase, that can continue to be used by any of our stakeholders. So with that in mind, and kind of understanding that this is now one of our primary roles, what problem does our enterprise data, transportation enterprise data, TED, environment kind of solve? So the statement, kind of the problem statement we're operating under was siloed and disparately managed business systems, of which the DOT has many, a lot of one-off systems that were kind of developed to manage very particular data within very particular units, were very hard to kind of access. So there's no central data linkage. and provides limited access to both the internal and external users, causing personnel to derive unmanaged data sets, which is a massive problem for individual professional use. So we wanted to kind of get rid of that. And one of the main benefits we were able to kind of sell to management back in 2012, there was a McKinsey study that basically said about 19% of a knowledge worker's time is spent searching for or gathering information, which for a DOT or for anybody basically equates to about 1 full day a week. So 1 day a week just spent looking for the stuff that's going to help them actually do their job. There was a follow-up study in 2019 by IDC where a little bit different definition here, not knowledge workers, but data professionals are losing 50% of their time every week, 30% of it searching for information, basically making those linkages themselves, then also governing and preparing data, and then 20% of their time, another full day, duplicating work that somebody else is already doing. So by having this well-established centralized geospatial data warehouse that we call TED, where people can go in and know that they're getting managed authoritative data directly from the business systems that were developed to manage it, frees up time for internal DOT personnel and our external stakeholders, including the general public. So this is kind of this is an old slide, but kind of goes through DOT. The way it's kind of structured is that we have several bureaus that are all kind of doing their own thing. But that was where you'd have to know somebody in that bureau or know who to contact or ask someone for a login to a particular system where maybe you're getting read-only access to it. And our thought was, well, let's every one of these pieces of data kind of has a location. Let's start kind of centralizing the access point for this, pulling it in from all these disparate systems, getting them into the enterprise data warehouse, and then providing common linkages through either asset IDs or through geospatial locations. So for engineering construction, that includes things like our capital projects, and then physical assets like signs, guide rails, bridges. For some of the planning, policy and planning bureau, that included the geospatial LRS itself, as well as some of the associated attribution that they're required to report, like the highway performance monitoring system, the model inventory of roadway elements, or things like traffic volumes, AADT, hourly counts, that type of stuff. We do have safety data. We've been working with UConn. I know there's kind of this intrinsic linkage between the University of Connecticut and CTDOT with the CDR, the Crash Data Repository, getting that information into our enterprise data warehouse. There's a lot of financial stuff that goes through what we call our composite project database. It's fed by Site Manager, which has construction projects, our obligation plan, and then core. We're involved with maintenance now too, understanding that a lot of these solutions that we're building to be able to manage the DOT's data don't really work without our maintenance workers being involved, because they're the ones out there touching, changing, updating, fixing a lot of these assets, and we want to be able to capture that. And then obviously the whole non-highway section of DOT, where we're talking about public transportation, whether it's rail or bus, involving them as a part of this effort as well. And we've got some really, really smart people down in public trans who've been kind of helping us learn more about their data and how we can help serve them through this kind of centralized location. So that's kind of everything kind of shoving into one. Here's an actual diagram of what our environment looks like. So we do have transactional editing databases. We're using an Esri Arc SDE architecture. So every bureau kind of has their own database, their own transactional database, where people can go in. There's versions being published specifically for editing of specific assets. They go in, they're editing their asset, and they have a reconcile and post and compress process within that transactional database. So when they go through, they're able to edit, they're able to QA their data, and they're able to say, this is the good stuff that I want to go up and be available to the whole agency, and then eventually to the general public. So they go through, they reconcile, post, and compress to QA down to default. Nightly, we have a geodatabase replication script that runs that takes that data from the transactional databases and puts it up into what we call our data mart, which is our organizationally available database. From there, we're publishing out read-only services. Nothing gets edited in the data mart. It's only an access point. All the editable services are coming from the transactional databases. And then we're using Esri's Arc Enterprise portal. I think we're upgraded to version 10.9 or 10.9.1. And that's kind of how people are accessing the information internally. They're going through the portal, through Esri sites, where we've kind of got this cultivated view for them, but they are able to access our information quickly, easily, go in, edit what they need to edit, view what they need to view, use the applications that are available internally, and then kind of answer their questions. We're not having our internal staff use the Open Data Hub. There's obviously some levels of information that don't that are either PII or kind of sensitive information, some of the proposed stuff or costing stuff that doesn't necessarily go to the public. So we do have this completely separate environment set up. We're using Esri's collaboration to actually take the information from our enterprise portal and copy it up to ArcGIS Online, where we're then sharing it to our hub site. Again, a real cultivated view for the general public to go in and easily access our information. And then from there, we're actually referencing that information up on the data.ct.gov site that OPM is managing, that's based in Socrata. So if you go search on the data.ct.gov, you'll find CTDOT information. It will say to you, this is an external link. We're basically going to shove you over to their open data site. So this is real quick, just kind of differences. We have the TED portal, which is kind of the internal staff versus the Open Data Hub. There's security on our TED portal requiring a membership of which we've negotiated a certain number with Esri. It's password and group protected. Information is only really exposed to people who really should have access to it, whether that's an editing environment, we're editing through kind of editing groups, or stuff that's shared directly with the organization. And that stuff's all coming out of the data mart and it's not editable at all. The Open Data Hub, no logins, obviously, all the content is publicly available. We're hosting our TED portal on our own Azure environment, which we can scale for performance or size. The hosting of our Open Data Hub is on Esri servers. We have 300,000 annual credits in our ELA, so we're not too concerned about running out of those at this point. And then internally, we're really discouraging kind of downloads of entire data sets. We want people to hook up to the web services instead so that they always have the latest and greatest information. But we do understand that for the general public, there may be the need to actually take this information off of our Open Data Hub and put it into something else. So we do have download enabled on our Open Data Hub. There might be some slight differences between the data that's available in one environment or another. There's basically a maturation process from our staging environment to staging transactional over to our production transactional. And then from there it gets up to the data mart and kind of works its way through until eventually it ends up in the Open Data Hub. So this does open up a whole lot of opportunity for DOT as far as our data sharing. We've already done briefings for the COGs, for some of the media outlets, showing them how to use the Open Data Hub, and we're doing one right now for the GIS user network. But we do see a lot of people going in and grabbing information from here. We do have Google Analytics set up on our Open Data Hub, so we're kind of monitoring where and when and how people are interacting with it so we can make adjustments to the web page. One of the things we've seen almost immediately is that people don't like scrolling. They're clicking on the things that first kind of appear. So we're looking at ways to kind of optimize that to drive them more toward the applications, which is what we think is kind of the most important thing for the general public versus some of the data sets, which honestly, I think for the GIS user network is probably your focus. But it does give us more opportunity to share information with some of the utility companies, some of our contractors, federal partners. One of the big things that came out was us publishing a bridge, a service with our bridge information that directly went to the GPS companies, hopefully helping them with their routing so that we don't all get stuck in traffic the next time somebody strikes a bridge on the Merritt Parkway. There's analysis tools, there's applications. We're utilizing a bunch of stuff up there, whether it's Esri Story Maps, Web App Builder, or Microsoft's Power BI, just to make it easier for the general public to access our information. But for what I think the GIS user network will probably care more about here is the REST services themselves. So you guys, those are now public REST services. You can hook directly into them whenever we publish or replicate up and collaborate out an update to a data set. You would now have that directly in whatever you're using. And again, the data download is there, supported by multiple formats. So some of the benefits, one of the big ones for us is that one that's in yellow in the middle is basically the idea of collecting once and using many, helping us identify stewards. We do have asset stewards, we have data stewards, we have metadata stewards, we have bureau leads who are kind of helping shepherd some of these people for the first time through actually managing their data in a geospatial environment. But one of the big things that we've kind of run into is just, well, I collect that, and well, so do I. Well, okay, who should be? And we've got some kind of defined processes internally at the DOT. Basically, the data steward is someone who can program a physical change to that asset, identifying who that is, the process is how that happens, collecting it once, and then being able to use it many times throughout the rest of the agency. We've also, obviously, some of the benefits of this, more intuitive maps applications that can kind of be customized by DOT staff who know the data best and put it out there for consumption by people who maybe don't have the necessary kind of technical knowledge to do it themselves or knowledge itself of the asset and how it operates. So we're very careful with that. We work, and it does take a decent amount of time, but we do work with the stewards to make sure that the applications that we're putting out kind of do properly represent their data. This has been up since November of last year, and we're already running into issues where we've got people kind of cherry picking information. So, and again, not issues, we got to be able to defend it. But at the same time, like there's really, you got to understand the data itself. We have pretty robust metadata up there helping that. But one of the things we've seen, again, with kind of the analytics stuff, is that not a lot of people are reading the metadata. So we'll try to work on that as well. So for the portal itself, we've got 62 roadway assets that are in there, and another 16 data sets that are kind of in development, not shared organizationally, but more being added every day. There's 34 roadway related geospatial data sets on the Open Data Hub, as well as 22 crash emphasis area data sets. And that's something that's really unique, where those crash emphasis area data sets and associated dashboards are actually coming from UConn. But by using this Open Data Hub technology, we're doing similar to what kind of Alfredo was alluding to, where you kind of just pull it in from those other environments, collaborate it over, and now it's available at DOT, referencing the information that's being made available from UConn. There's 14 GIS applications interacting with the data on the internal DOT portal, and there's more that are being developed for the end user to be able to view or query or export some of the information. There's 7 publicly available GIS applications. All of them, I think, are either Web App Builder or Power BI that are available in our Open Data Hub, but again, with more coming every day. And that's also in addition to kind of the native hub functionality, where you can go in and filter and query and do some of the stuff within the hub site itself. As far as analysis and interactive story maps, we've started putting together, and this is one of Jenny's kind of tasks. She works in our analytics section over in Aegis. We're putting together narrative analyses with some of the DOT's information based on questions that we're getting from the general public. So we did one earlier on in COVID based on what we were seeing with some of the speeds around the state and how that was contributing to the fact that we had the identical number of fatals in April of 2019 as we did in April of 2020, despite the fact volumes were like 40%. So putting together narrative story maps using this data, using this platform has kind of been really key for us. And then lastly, the Open Data Hub has just a couple of them that are out there, but it does have the 22 specific dashboards from the emphasis areas from the crash as well. So just if there's feedback forms and stuff like that on our Open Data site, please feel free to go in and ask for information or ask for analysis tools or anything else that you think would be kind of helpful for you or helpful to the general public. So applications, again, kind of where we're thinking from as a public agency, there's kind of different audiences here, right? And like when we're working with Deep or we're working with DESP, like talking with Stu or talking with Dan, that's one thing. When we're talking with the GIS user network, it's another thing. And then when we're talking to the general public and some of the media outlets who ask some really good but basic questions on how to even access some of this information, we felt that the best way to do this and facilitate access for as many people as possible was to build web apps. So a lot of the data that's up there has an associated web app. What you will see as a part of the DOT's process is that data comes first, then application comes after. Just, I mean, logically, but also because we feel there's way more value in making the data available quickly so that more people can use it, like the user network attendees, versus making them wait until we also have an associated application. One of the main backbones, I'm going to go a little bit into some of the content that's up on our Open Data site now. The roadway data was kind of our bread and butter. Alfredo has already alluded to it. It's been underdeveloped since going back to 2015. But we do have a geospatial LRS that is very, very accurate and is being actively maintained every year through collaboration with the municipalities. We do solicit them every year for any type of change to the local road system. And then during the year, the roadway inventory staff actually manage the state road system for every single project that goes out there. About 3,700 miles of roads on the state routes, about 17,400 on the local routes, another 400 miles of ramps, very, very accurately located and being maintained. They're using a combination of aerial imagery, ground level imagery, and they're using Exor's AWLRS system, formerly Exor, to manage this. So I think Shane had put in something in the chat about going through and using a collaboration between DESP, DOT, the municipalities, and using Ezra's roads and highways. Unfortunately, we don't have that license right now. We're still looking at it, but our LRS management system of record is AWLRS. So here's some of the roadway data that's accessible now. I'm going to fly through these because we're going to give you guys the URL and you're going to be able to go find this right up there. But there's a lot of data sets that are valuable for safety analysis. That's kind of been the focus. Meyer has been one of the focuses, but also a lot of designations, classifications, functional class, national highway system, StrawNet, overlaps of where routes overlap each other. If you're going across the Bulkley Bridge, it's not just 84, it's also 44, it's also US 6, like that type of stuff, and designating that all the way through. And we go from the large data sets like the state route system, the local route system, all the way down to really small ones like the runaway truck ramps, where we have one of those locations in the entire state. But it's all stuff that's up there and available on the Open Data Hub now. Again, kind of Meyer. There's 74 different attributes. I know there's not 74 assets that were listed on the previous page, but something like lane information has multiple Meyer attributes. For those who aren't familiar with Meyer, it's a model inventory of roadway elements. It's an FHWA developed data set that kind of goes through and identified all the things that would be really important for safety analysis, doing network screening and network diagnosis of potential issues with the roadway, really offering our engineers a more data-driven way to actually analyze how the road network is operating based on some of the crash data using a variety of factors. So there's 74 attributes that they're actually managing here across a variety of assets. So when you go in and you're in the Open Data Hub, you click on an individual asset, it'll give you kind of the list of all the attributes that are there. A lot of those are going to be Meyer related. So here's some additional internal data right now, and Bridges is highlighted here because Bridges is actually external now as well, but we are working on information related to like speed limits, bus routes, bus stops, highway use restrictions that come out of our Office of State Traffic Administration, and then some boundary information like the maintenance districts, maintenance garages, that type of stuff. We are looking, and one of the big things that I know a lot of people care about is projects. So our capital program is in the final stages of actually being approved to go up to the Open Data Hub. And then we're also working with our annual maintenance resurfacing program, which is anywhere between 250 and 320 miles of paving that we do every single year, center line paving. So that's another one. So you're going to be able to go into our hub or hook into that data set and then find out where the DOT is actually putting projects every single year. This is the crash data. This is again through UConn. These are also available on Open Data Hub going back to the UConn environment, but there's a lot of information here on what we call emphasis areas of different types of crashes going all the way back to 2015. So whether it's you're looking for information on bicycle crashes or older driver crashes, there's an associated dashboard that allows you to filter these, but there's also kind of the raw data set itself that's also available. So with that, open up the site real quick. I have a feeling I'm going to lose the screen when I do this, though. Can you guys still see it or no?
Yes, we can. We can see the PowerPoint still, Greg.
Okay, we don't want the PowerPoint. So let me go back.
That also did drop our open data link in the chat already too. So that saves
Perfect.
you a tab.
Here we go. I want Edge. Is this the right one?
Yeah, it looks like it.
There we go. All right. So the URL's in there. You guys, everyone knows how to use a browser. So you're going to get there. Just wanted to walk you through a little bit. Right off the bat, there's some contact us links and things up top. You can do some immediate filtering up here. We do have a data disclaimer in terms of use linked multiple times. We did work with CT Legal to kind of go CTDOT Legal, go through that. Real quick search box right at the top. And then you can look at data by the categories down here. We are using tags to kind of bucket our information for roadways, highway assets, crash transit, roadway projects, and boundaries. Some of these are still coming soon, but it is coming soon. There's a link right here, brings you to a Microsoft form to give us feedback. We have put together a step-by-step kind of tutorial on how to navigate some of the open data functionality using Esri story maps. So if you click here, it brings you right to that. These are the featured applications. More will be coming. And you can kind of see, like, even though there's only 2 here, we have several others under our newest applications, a way to kind of monitor what's coming or what has just been added to the site. But something like this roadway classification and characteristic map and dashboard is actually several applications embedded into one. We do allow you to kind of look by, it should be browse content by type, but applications, story maps, dashboards, or services. We are linking to some of the COGs and some of the local GIS resources as well as some of the critical DOT partners. So like someone like US DOT or the open data portal for the site, the crash data repository, Deep, some of the data that we use pretty regularly. So with that, I mean, it's hub site. It's what I think most people are kind of familiar with. This is our landing page. Like I said, we're seeing most people operating just within here, but please feel free when you go in and take a look around to submit any feedback or ask us any questions. We have it feeding kind of a ticketing system for the Aegis staff to go through and look at. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of what we envision as our primary public access point to a lot of the DOT's data. And from here, you can get to things like the REST services or the data downloads and stuff like that. Thoughts, questions, comments?
We have one question in the Q&A. Is the DOT route data up there?
The route data?
ROW, I'm assuming right-of-way
Oh,
data?
right away data. So not quite yet. And I'll give a caveat with the right-of-way data for right now. They did reach out maybe 3 weeks ago, looking to initiate the process of actually putting their information public, but it's going to come with some pretty significant caveats in the metadata. They went through what our survey section has done is they went through and digitized to the original plans when the highways were built. And that's kind of their starting point, right? After that, they're gonna have to continue with their process and go through with any of the projects that potentially modified those. So the initial set that's going out is going to be the original right-of-way lines.
Mike, you want to go next?
Yes. All right. Thanks, Greg. Awesome presentation, and the hub site looks very cool. But I have a question about, I manage a website at WestCOG, so I'm always tracking usage on the website, and it's mostly just people, spiders crawling around our website. But I'm curious how usage is going for the hub. Are you able to track that with analytics? Are you seeing increase in usage, and how's that all? Is it where you want to go? Is it you feel like it's plateauing? What's the latest?
So spiked as high as it'll ever spike on GIS day. So thank you guys for giving us up our opportunity to go through and have people going there. And then at that point, we had a lot of roadway data up there, and that was pretty much it, right? We had a lot of this coming soon stuff. As we've been continuing to do more outreach, we've seen that kind of level continue to jump almost weekly. Like there's another average daily users of somewhere between 40 and 50 every week as we've kind of gone through. So it started off, it was down below 100. We were getting 90 or whatever. And then now we're well over 250 or 300 average daily users going in and actually looking at the data. We're in the tens of thousands for actual loads of the site itself. So we're seeing moderate kind of adoption, but again, once we do more of these and we kind of make people more aware, if you go to the DOT's website, the portal.ct.gov/DOT, there's a banner up there that kind of leads you here as well. So we're trying to make it just kind of doing a lot of outreach and relying on our comms section to kind of help us with that. So this, I know there's a couple other questions, Jenny. I don't know if we want to go.
Yeah, I'm going.
Okay.
I just don't read quick. Will an updated rail right-of-way layer be available through portal? There's some discrepancies between CNG, SCG over ownership in the current DOT map.
So it's on the roadmap for rights of way. I was talking to our rail personnel actually earlier this week, asking for an update on that as well. They're going through the VAL maps and kind of trying to digitize that as well. But they initially started with their focus for developing their data on the expressways, moved on to the state secondaries, and then they're moving on to kind of some of the lesser like SSI or SI, SSR, those types of roads. And then from there, I believe their next step is actually going to be to tackle the rail.
Will the public data include street names? What's up there is just line data and general classification.
Yep. So the way that we kind of have the information organized is by asset, and some of those are specific assets, right? So the local road street name of a state route is an asset class that can be downloaded with its own geometry, with its own M values and everything like that. The local road network would have street names in it as well. So there's independent IDs. Basically, the unique ID of a town road is the first 3 letters of the town by the DOT's town numbering system, followed by a sequential number of when the road was actually accepted. But with that would also be a town road name as well. So Main Street number 1 or Elm Street or whatever else is in that asset as well.
Then our next one, how often will the data be updated? What is your schedule? That one's kind of a loaded question.
Yep. So my first advice for that, read the metadata on them, because it is very different for each asset. Things like the road network and what goes out to the public for that are annual, but other data sets are way more frequently. The project stuff is updated nightly. There are some live looks at some of the LRS data, but those are very few and far between, and they're very clearly identified. If something has like an active or live or updated as a part of its name, speed limits is one of them, functional class is another one. Those are updated more frequently, and just you'd have to kind of go into the metadata.
Also to build off that, the way our infrastructure is, we have a replication process that pulls our data from the authoritative layer that then goes to our layer that gets collaborated up into AGOL. So that runs nightly, and our collaboration runs nightly. So if there is any data sets that are updated, it should be up within a 24-hour span. So depending on how often the data steward, and we do everything via versioning. So once the versions get updated, all of that data gets pushed up, and then it goes through our circuits to make it to the open data hub.
And there's another good question on here too. And again, kind of look at the metadata and look at the titles. We're trying to give access to as much as possible. So the roadway characteristic classification data is the snapshot data. There's also an ADT is the ADT snapshot data. There's also like an ADT historical. There's a local road or state route network historical. Those are all ones that would have been previous year snapshots that were moving. So you can go in and look at a variety of years, see how the networks evolved, or some of the ADTs have evolved, but you got to just be careful with the historical ones because they're not the ones that maybe the DOT itself would be using.
And do road segments have last year paved as an attribute? We don't actually work in all of the data. It's our job to get it up there. So this is again where Greg says the metadata is very important. And normally in what's published, there is the avenue to go and ask the actual data stewards specific questions about their data. I don't know if that's where you're going with it, Greg.
Yeah, there's more. Again, read the metadata, right? But at the same time, like I worked in roadway for 10 years. So the last year paved for the state routes, they're using that more as an operational one now. We're kind of relying more on pavement design and pavement management to provide some of that through their activity file. So it's not in this particular data set, but is one that we do see coming. That being said, it's really only going to be on the state route system because we don't actually get that information from the locals with a very small exception of HPMS sample sections. So if you're looking for some last year paved information or last year of improvement, maybe take a look at the HPMS data. There might be some in there. It's not going to be full coverage though. So I'll warn you right there.
Nice. And if you do use our feedback forms or questions forms on the open data, that's how we get you to the data steward.
Yep.
That's super exciting too. Full circle back to the front page of the hub site. Perfect last question. So with that, we're going to transition. If you have any more questions for either Greg or Alfredo, you can put their emails. Oh, look at the music coming on. Look at Mike. We can put their emails in the chat. Feel free to reach out to them directly. So we do have a quick little 15-minute break. And then when we come back, we have Moataz speaking to us about the M88. I know, everyone get excited. All right, everyone. So up next, we have Moataz. Moataz received his master's in computer science from, oh God, Moataz, how do I say that? Cairo University. Cairo University. He's a PhD candidate in the geography department at UConn. He also works at CTSRC, where he is the absolute wizard at Survey 123. He pushes it to the boundaries that no one else can. And that's going to lead us right into his M88 presentation, where you get to see his amazing skills.
Thank you. Okay, let me start my presentation. Share. Yeah, I'm a Teams guy, actually. Yeah, here, share the screen.
Right at the bottom in the center, it's green. You see it?
Yeah, so it only gives me one screen.
Oh,
Let's
that's
try
weird.
that.
Yeah.
That's it.
We could see you. We can't see your presentation yet.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the second screen. It only gives me one of them. Let me try that. So it only shows windows. It can't show screen, I believe. So
oh, something's going. Oh, we can see it, but it's in it's like it's not in the presentation view. There we go. You're good to go. Now we're in presentation view.
Great. Okay, so today I'm going to present the Power Letter applications. We developed these apps in CTSRC. We're sponsored by Connecticut Department of Transportation, and CTSRC actually developed some apps for, or currently developing some apps for Connecticut Department of Transportation, including the crashes data visualization and reporting, traffic signals malfunction data collection and reporting, roadway updates data collection, visualization and reporting, and the Power Letter apps that I'm going to present today. Some of these apps are public, that goes into a DOT portal, and some are just used inside the organization, such as the traffic signals and the N29 roadway updates and the Power Letter apps. Let's start with the agenda. I'll begin by introducing what's the Power Letter process and the current workflow that runs this process. The ArcGIS Enterprise Portal app that we are going to use to automate the Power Letter process, the new Power Letter system we developed. I will present a demo first, then I will present a back-end demonstration for the Survey 123 app and the Feature Reports app. So the goal of Power Letter applications is to collect intersection equipment information, calculate the Power Letter consumption, and to generate reports for Power Letter consumption, which will be called the Power Letters, and automate the communication between transportation engineers within the organization for editing, approving, or reviewing the Power Letters, and automatically distribute Power Letters to customers and suppliers. So currently, intersections in CTDOT, intersections in Connecticut in general are unmetered. And in order to calculate the power consumption for traffic signals, detection load components, detection cameras, luminaires on the intersection, they're currently calculated using a kind of formula that takes the number of equipment, the number of lamps, the flashing colors, the wattages, and calculate the total power consumption. So currently, CTDOT is the link between the power suppliers and the entities that operates and pays for power consumption, for traffic intersection power consumption. They collect, they are responsible for collecting the information and sending bills to the power suppliers and the signal, the traffic signal operators or the equipment operators. So currently this process starts by whenever a change goes into an intersection, for example, a new equipment installed, new traffic signal updated, or new detection load components are installed on the intersection. Whenever an update happens, an as-built document is created using traffic signal engineer or field worker, and it's sent to CTDOT. They then enter this data into a system that calculates the power consumption based on the number of traffic ways, number of signals, signal colors, and the wattage values for all equipments. Then creates this a standard Power Letter that is sent to the power supplier and the customer. So this is how the Power Letter looks like. It's a standard approved document that contains information about the utility company, that's the power supplying company, the customer that's paying for the intersection power consumption, and the intersection location, the reference number, and the address, and some other basic information. And most importantly, the operating characteristics that based on which the power consumption is calculated, the number of equipments, the wattage for each, and the formula used to calculate the total wattage values and the total monthly power consumption. So this letter is sent to the customers and the power suppliers for billing purposes. So currently, this whole process is done using manual entry. The as-built document is built using printed forms or Word forms that are filled with equipment changes that goes into the intersection. Then Excel sheets are used to calculate the total power consumption, and Word templates are filled in at the end to create the power letters that are sent to the power suppliers and the customers. So currently, this is how the Excel sheet looks like. For each intersection, there are a number of phases and number of signal heads. Each signal head will has a corresponding flashing color for each phase, which is whether it's green or red, whether it has a flashing beacon or not, the flashing color for each at each phase or at each signal head. So all these values are used to calculate some intermediary variables that, for example, the red-green ratio and the total power and the monthly power. So all these values go into formulas that calculate at the end the total power consumption. Also, the detection load part here is used to add to the total power consumption, but it's solely dedicated to detection load components, the cameras, the census receivers, the blackout sign, and so on. So the problem with this current workflow is that it's time consuming and prone to error because there's a lot of manual entry here, and there is no centralized data storage or data structure to be able to easily retrieve submitted power letters or previous intersection data records that's dedicated for power consumption. Currently, we developed a series of apps to automate this process that utilizes the ArcGIS Enterprise Portal apps that are Survey 1 to 3, web maps, operational dashboards, feature reports, and FME. Actually, FME is not ArcGIS Enterprise Portal. It's a third party third party software that we will talk about in the next slides, and how it automates the process of power letter distribution. So Survey 1 to 3 will handle the task of data collection from field data collection and reviewing, editing, and communicate information between different transportation engineers. Web maps will be used to visualize information about intersections and power letters. Operational dashboard will be the link between all these apps, will show all control areas, show all submitted power letters, will give transportation engineers the ability to navigate through other apps through the dashboard, give overall reports about the number of control areas and power letters, and we will show a demo for the operational dashboard. Feature reports here is a very important tool to generate the final power letter that's identical to the approved power letter that's sent to customers and the power suppliers. And finally, the FME will handle the process. It will automate the process of power letter distribution to customers and power suppliers. So the benefit for ArcGIS Enterprise Portal here is that it's considered a content management system, CMS. We don't build anything from scratch. We don't write codes from scratch. We use we tailor different modules that are already existing to fit the customer needs. So this is easier to develop, and easier to maintain, and easier to upgrade. We already have documentation ready for different aspects of all applications we use. It's a cross-platform. We can use the apps on different devices. For example, field collection can be done using iOS devices or Android devices or Surface computers or Windows computers, whatever. So this is pre-established using in ArcGIS Enterprise Portal. it just gets customized to fit our needs. So this is a great advantage of ArcGIS Enterprise Portal. This is the current. This represents the current model of the system. This is how the current system looks like. We have three major applications: the survey app, the dashboard, and the feature reports. All communication or all navigation is done through the dashboard. Transportation engineers can use the dashboard to access existing surveys or create new surveys. Also, field workers can do the same and communicate information to transportation engineers through the dashboard too. And the feature reports can be navigated to through the dashboard also, and can generate reports for any newly submitted power letter. Whenever an update or new information or new power letter record is created through the survey app, the ArcSDE handles the data storage and data management here. And also at the same time, FME also always listens to new submissions and newly edited data in order to send or distribute the power letters to customers that match the authorized format. So FME basically, what FME basically does here is to run the newly submitted data through a series of checks or tests, and see whether an email can be sent to customers or power suppliers that fulfills. It just makes sure that all information is available and the power letter itself is attached, and everything checks in and will automatically send the email, write the email, and send it to the power suppliers and customers. So I will start a demo for the applications. Let me turn off this laser pointer. Okay. So can you see the dashboard?
Not yet. You probably have to
Um,
share that window.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you might have to stop
The
sharing and
application.
reshare.
How about now?
Yep.
Okay, great. So this is how the dashboard looks like. There are a series of panels. Each panel is dedicated to show different kind of information. The top right panel here is a web map, interactive web map that shows all intersections in NCT and all submitted power letters. The power letters show here in diamond points. The two panels on the left here shows a list of all control areas in CT, and a details panel for each for the currently selected control area. Whenever I select one here, the details will update and the map will update with the currently selected one. For example, the signal type, the customer to bill to for that traffic signal for that intersection, the address, the nearest cross street, and other basic information. The left two panel, the bottom left two panels here show the power letter information. We have here a list of all submitted power letters, and this again shows the details of the currently selected power letter. For example, if I have select one of these, like this one, Vernon 146-206, it will show the flashing operation, the normal operation, and other basic information regarding the components of the signals on that intersection and the wattage values for these components. It also will show the signal heads on that, the different signal heads and the different phases, different colors at each phase for the signal heads on that intersection, and also the detection load components. We have a grid smart processor camera, 5 of them, and the wattage definitions for that components. All these values are initially entered by survey 123, and they show here once a new power letter is submitted. So the process usually starts by a transportation engineer wants to create a new power letter for an intersection because he received an as-built document and this intersection has undergone a change. So he he will need to filter data over to find the correct intersection. This can be done through the map by selecting an area, or can be done using the map filter, the dashboard filter. For example, we can just filter data using by selecting a rectangular area. We just didn't enable that. Yeah, so all data on the dashboard will get updated to the selected area. Another way to do that is to just use the filters on the dashboard. So the dashboard can filter data by different attributes for control areas and power letters. Still loading. Takes a moment. Here. So we have here different attributes for control areas and power letter. For example, if I need all control areas and Vernon, I can just filter data using Vernon town name, and I will have only control areas and power letters there. So the next step for the transportation engineer is to select one intersection from here or from the map, and go ahead and click the generate power letter link. We used arcade expression to create these links in the details tab. It's a little customization, little custom coding. So generate power letter here will redirect the dashboard to a new survey 123 application. It will get pre-populated with information related to that intersection, the intersection location, and some basic information such as the equipment description, the location of the intersection, the let's see, inspection, the account number, some information related to the city, the route name, and other basic information. So the engineer won't have to refill all this from the beginning. The engineer starts by entering some information regarding that intersection and the inspection information, which relates to the change that has undergone to that intersection. It takes a project number, account number, meter number, and other information. After that, he starts by filling information related to the equipment on that intersection. So let me just reset this form. Okay. So at this bottom area here, he can add a new signal. He just adds the number of phases for that intersection, the number of signal heads in that signal assembly, the flashing operation, what color it flashes, and the color for each component at each phase. At phase 1, we have a green arrow. At phase 2, we have a red arrow, and so on. After that, he will have a summary table here that tells him the components and the wattage values for each component and the totals and everything. If everything checks in, he just add some comments and sign the form and submit it, and it will show right away into the power consumption dashboard. So once a new power letter is generated, another transportation engineer can go ahead and filter all information by the submitted value or submitted power letters. He can review these power letters. Let me clear that one, reset. Yeah. So he at this panel, he can select the newly submitted power letters and review them. Just taking some time. Yeah, here. Okay. So this is a newly submitted power letter. He can just select it and click edit power letter. So it will again open survey 123 for editing that power letter, reviewing it, and submitting it again. Once the power letter is submitted and the status of the power letter is reviewed, FME will start working by sending the feature report to power supplier and to the customers. This is, let me bring up. Yeah. So this is how the email sent to the customers or the power suppliers. Firstly, this is an email sent to the transportation engineer telling him, giving him a notification that a new power letter is submitted and it needs to be reviewed. Whenever a power letter is reviewed, this email is sent to the customer, and it just has information about the intersection, and it has also the power letter attached. And this power letter is generated identical to the authorized power letter by the DOT. So the third component here is the feature reports. I'll try to quickly demonstrate it. So if we have a submitted power letter and we want to download the power letter for it, there is the generate report link here. It will redirect from the dashboard to the feature reports, survey 123 feature reports interface. So the user will just hit preview sample report, and it will download that report, and it can be attached to the survey 123 app or can be mailed, because some customers doesn't provide, or some supplier customer doesn't have emails available in our database. So some of these will need to be downloaded and mailed. So that's how the generated power letter looks like, and it mimics the template for power letters that's sent by the DOT. So that was a quick demo for the 3 applications. I will have a few minutes to demonstrate how some of these were designed, and I will start by the let's start by the survey 123 application. So survey 123 is designed. Can you see my presentation, or it's still on the other window? So can you see my presentation?
No, the presentation is not visible. You'd have to update the application being displayed.
Okay. So this is how survey 123 is designed. It's designed by means of XLS form. So every row here represents a question on the survey, and every column represents a property for that question. For example, this type column here decides the type of the question. The geopoint question is the map. The text question is just a textual input. The select one is multiple select questions, and so on. The name and label decides the display name for that question and the database name. The appearance decides how this question will show on the survey. For example, a multi-select question can be radio buttons or drop-down list or other formats. The calculation field is here. This is a very powerful one. You can we usually use that to calculate intermediary variables that are aggregated at the end to the total power consumption.
Moataz, are you showing? I'm sorry to interrupt. Are you showing the XLS form now? Because we see the application currently, the ArcGIS Survey 123 application. Is that the right screen?
Yeah, that's the right screen.
Ah, there we go. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, so every column here is specific for some property for each question. As I said, each question is represented by a record here. So the calculation column here states how this question will be calculated. Sometimes we use external media files to pull data into the survey based on the answers of other questions. The constraint column decides the constraints, the validation rules on that question, and what message we want to show if one of the validation rules were violated. And there are many other fields that are used to to control the behavior of each question on the survey form. Regarding the report design, we designed a template that that matches the power letter generated by the that's followed by the DOT. The good thing here is that we want to replace some values with values from the database that represents the report that represents the current power letter for that report. We just replace these values with the placeholders of variable names. So these variables get pulled from the database, added to this Word document, and converted to PDF and downloaded. And they will just show will show a PDF report that's just like the original power letter report. Let me bring one. So that report is automatically generated using the feature report app on ArcGIS portal. So this is a quick review on how a feature report is designed. And I think that ends my presentation, and I will happy to have questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Moataz. If anyone has any questions, please drop them in the chat right now. And we'll spend a few minutes going over them. The Q&A chat is a little easier. You have them in the regular chat. For me, I don't know if it is for you guys. It's easier for me to read.
I got a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is Mike Toll at WestCOG. I'm curious about how it's been received by the users, the engineers. Do they seem to enjoy the process? Are they kind of grumpy about it? Have they picked it up quickly?
Well, yeah. So I believe the first couple of demos they were hesitant about that, but at the end they found it way easier than using Excel sheets, because here the dashboard makes everything easier. They can reference any previously submitted power letters, and they can just open it for editing. Yeah, the biggest problem with using file systems is that you can't really you don't really have an easy way to access old records. For example, using the area ID for that intersection, or the town name, or whatever attribute you want to filter to access an old record. So they found the dashboard handy in that way, and yeah, I think it took about 2 or 3 meetings to get used to it. The other thing is that we are creating a comprehensive documentation for using the dashboard, and for maybe to make them able to update some aspects of the survey form themselves without having to return to us.
Very interesting. Thanks, Moataz.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, there's one in the chat. All right. Are XLS forms used by other applications too? Is this a specific Esri training for XLS forms in Survey 123 Connect with all the properties? I have used Modify to Survey, but can't seem to figure out all of the properties.
Well, so let me. Okay, so what do you mean by using XLS form other? Actually, XLS forms are only used by. Let me share another screen. So we use ArcGIS Survey 123 Connect to design Survey 123 applications. So this is the interface. It translates the XLS form automatically to the final format for all questions. And
your screen's not sharing properly. Real quick, Moataz. It's just showing black. So you might just want to reshare.
Okay.
It didn't transition to the Survey 123 Connect Excel form properly.
Share. What about now?
Now we could see kind of the interface that shows kind of the rough draft before you publish it, but it's not showing the Excel. So I'm not sure which one you want to show. It's the interface
Yeah,
or the
okay.
form.
This should be able to share a window. Not
Yeah, so
Anyway.
we're seeing the form, the kind of like preview of the final product in the Connect.
So
There's
this is the
form.
XLS form. It's yeah, okay. So the XLS form in general is used only with XLS with the Survey 123 Connect. This is a Windows application that you can use to design the surveys. So no, it can't be used with other interfaces. It's only used with ArcGIS Survey 123 Connect. If that answers your question.
Any other questions? And I think if you're looking for specific trainings, I'm not sure if this is the route Moataz went. This is the route I go when I use Survey 123. Is there's a lot of help documents Esri has published, as well as there's some really intuitive YouTube videos that shows you how to use Survey 123 also. I'm not sure if that's the route you went to learn also, Moataz.
Well, and if there's any issues that I can help with, you can always contact me too.
We'll put
I might be able to
Moataz's
help.
contact in the chat for you also after. Any other questions? Any other hand? Alfredo's gonna need a raise at that before that meeting. All right, our last one is coming up. We are gonna learn about the open data standards, and it's gonna be the one and only Tucker Bennett that works for Mike. So if you don't like this presentation, you could probably blame Mike. And take it away, Tucker.
I'm fine with that. Hi, everyone. I'm Tucker. I'm a data scientist over at WestCOG, and I am here to talk to you all about a data standard that we developed, or rather a schema that we've developed for open space data. And we are proposing that it be endorsed by the network as a standard for the collection of open space data statewide. So why bother with a standard for open space data? Simply just to ensure that the most important data is being collected, especially as there are a number of programs that require specific things out of open space data, such as sustainable CT and the FEMA's community rating system. Having a standard would reduce duplication of effort and allow more effective cooperation across municipalities levels, like the regional level, the watershed level, and for organizations like land trusts that work at those levels. So for a bit of background, we at WestCOG developed this standard as part of a regional open space inventory that we conducted recently. Developing the schema, we borrowed heavily from the schema that was developed by Aaron Budrus over at Naugatuck Valley COG for sustainable CT data. And we modified it to include some fields that are relevant to the CRS program, because that was a particular focus of our inventory. After this project, we discussed this schema with a small working group of folks who are particularly involved in open space data. And with that feedback, we made some significant revisions to the schema. And that revised version is what I'm going to share with you today. So I'm going to dive right into it and just go through it field by field. Can everyone see my screen all right?
Yes, we can.
All right. So starting off with the basics, there's municipality field. This is at the parcel level for reference. This is the municipality that contains the property. Parcel ID. Ideally, this is whatever's used most frequently by the municipality in question. This can be a PID or it can be a map block lot. Then a unique identifier for internal use. This is just to make so that this can be conducted across multiple municipalities. First 5 digits of the municipality name followed by the parcel ID field, separated by an underscore. a common name or title which can be used for the property for things like parks, state parks, municipal parks, or preserves. This is going to be an important field. Otherwise, it can just be left null. Primary and secondary function. This is the general usage category for the property. These are the same as used for the sustainable CT schema. And they're all on this list right here. And this list applies to both the primary and the secondary. The property owner as listed by the assessor, and then the category that that owner belongs to. And we have, again, we have a list of owner categories over here. Notably, water companies are pulled out as that's a particularly relevant category for open space data. And this refers to the fee owner of the parcel itself, not to the holder of any conservation easements or other easements. A couple important fields here. Does the property meet the basic requirements of eligibility for the CRS program, which is that it's preserved or protected and within the regulatory floodplain? And I'm actually going to explain both of those more in a little bit. And then does the property meet the requirements of the sustainable CT definition of open space? And there's reference links for both of those here. The protection status of the property. This is one that we put a lot of time into. Protection status and protection type, because for the CRS program, there's this category of preservation, which is different than legal protection. It doesn't have quite as strict requirements, and there's sort of an informal written protection aspect of that. And that's described here under protection status. To minimize the number of fields, we rolled preserved and protected together. One of the protection status categories is informal protection, and that counts that written intent protection type here. And that is when that applies to government and nonprofit entities that release a written statement that they will not develop this parcel. It's not legally binding, but it is enough to count for FEMA's CRS program. Other than that, we have easements, multiple easements, whether the property is protected by a particular regulation at the municipal, state, or federal level, or if it's deed restricted. Following off those easements and the holders of any of these easements. Again, that's not the owner is the fee. The owner is the fee owner, and this is where you put the easement holders. The names of any reference documents for the preservation and protected status. If there's a written agreement, ideally if that's hosted online, that would be linked here. Otherwise, a link to a particular regulation that applies, or to deed restriction documents, easement documents, stuff like that. The name and link to a digital copy if that's available. Does the public have access to the property? Unrestricted, restricted, or no access altogether. We break down the acreage field in a few ways, and this is particularly relevant for the CRS program because they're concerned about the acreage of the property that's within the regulatory floodplain. So we have the full acreage, the area of the property that legal protection applies to. For easements, for example, the protection wouldn't necessarily cover the entire parcel. Acreage within the regulatory floodplain, acreage of the property that's covered by impervious surfaces, acreage that's eligible for credit under CRS, and the acreage that meets the standards of natural function open space. And we actually ended up leaving this blank on our inventory because it's kind of hard to document, but I think it's important to include in the schema, because if that documentation is there, that's really useful information to have. Any additional notes regarding the property? An explanation of any field where other was entered, and just a couple housekeeping items: the name of the last editor of the data record and the date of the most recent edit. And that's all I have. If anyone has any questions on this before we move on.
Any direct questions, you can raise your hand and Mike will unmute you. Or you could drop them in the chat and I will read them out. Where does someone find a copy of this?
That is a good question. I can make that available. Mike, is it already on our website under the open space page?
I believe we do have the schema available in the open site, open on that page, but we'll also make a point to have it on the CTGIS network page. So it's something that does pop up, and then we're going to be advocating for it to be on state data pages, and it's probably also on Sustainable CT's page. But of course, anything hosted on the state, we have to run it by them. So, but currently, I believe it is on the WestCOG open space page, as we can find it.
If I may, yeah, I'll grab a copy of it and then we'll bring that up at the advisory council meeting and see what we can do with that.
Very cool. Thanks, Alfredo. All right, not seeing any questions. That might be a good sign. We're going to put it to the test. Let's see. We're going to do the vote. Here I have
it was a flawless presentation.
That's right. Well, I mean, it was a pretty easy project, right? We just took someone else's finished schema and said, here it is. So you can't go wrong there. All right, here's the poll. Polls. Open space standard. Adopt the Connecticut open space data standard. Right. And for anyone wondering, this means that I should say it's endorsed. Endorse the CT open data space standard, because we're going to have it on our CTGIS network website. So that's the extent of what we're doing. All right, here we go.
If anyone's not interested in being on the user network, but is interested in topics like this moving forward, feel free to reach out to anyone on the user network. We'll make sure you're included in these conversations as well.
That's a great point. And a good plug for, like, let's say you like data standards. I love data standards. So that's how I got into the network, and I run that committee. And so just reach out to me if you want to talk about data standards. Maybe there's someone you want to lead. Maybe there's some data standard that you did a good project on, and you're like, you know what, this should be a data standard. I figured out. Yeah. Go ahead.
You don't have to be on the user network to be on the subcommittees as well. So when the subcommittees do our updates, and then we'll probably send out an email on the listserv, since our next meeting will hopefully be in person and more of a social. If there's anything that interests you, you could join the subcommittees and be involved that way as well. And same for GIS Day, when we do start planning that as a committee, you don't need to be on it to be involved in the process. So there's plenty of ways that you guys can get involved that doesn't necessarily have to do with being on a committee.
Thanks, Jenny. Totally true. And for those just still working to fill it out, there should be a survey. Is this a question?
Yes.
Oh, fascinating. Tucker, has your mapping of open space resulting in the reduction of flood insurance costs for any municipalities residents that participate in the CRS program?
That was one of our intentions with this project, and one of the major barriers to municipalities for getting those points under CRS to get those reductions for protected open space in particular is having the documentation and the calculations of those acreages. We've made this available through a regional open space viewer with these calculations built into it. We're hoping that our municipalities will take that data and run with it to get those points and get those reduction in flood insurance costs.
So the short answer to that question is no. Communities have not seen, right? Not yet. So yes, And I should point out that not many towns in our region even use the CRS program, just as Tucker pointed out, it's onerous. And so the ones that do, they definitely use the open space process. Now, when they go and reapply, they'll just take our data and say, here's it'll be done for them. So we're taking on some of the work for our communities in that CRS process, and we're trying to show it as a way to encourage them to join. All right, I'm going to close this poll out. Last chance in that poll. We got 56 participation.
Woo!
So more than half. All right, I'm going to end the poll.
Especially, I think we had almost 70 people at one point, so that's good today.
Yeah, we had really good attendance. All right, so 31 out of 31 people who did vote, they all said yes, please make this a standard. And I'm sure a number of people probably, I'm not sure what their reasons were for not voting. They had their own reasons for that. So I call that abstentions. They abstained. But I think collectively it's a pass. No one has any issues with the. Tucker, let's see what you got. So you can share your screen there.
All right, we got some open space here. So this is our regional open space inventory here. Zoom in on some of the parcels here. And so closer up, we have we have all the parcel boundaries. These blue areas are areas that are defined as significant flood hazard area by FEMA. So you can see where they overlap with the open space parcels. This is these are the pop-ups. We have name, owner, function, protection status, all that good stuff that that I just showed you all in the data schema. CRS eligibility. This is that acreage breakdown, and a parcel ID, which is linked to our data correction form, which is built through Survey 123, and will helps us to keep the data in here accurate.
Excellent. Thanks, Tucker. Thanks for showcasing that. So that's just our viewer. I wanted you guys to get a peek at that. I know the link was also shared.
These are
and data.
We also have the estimated credits that each municipality can earn through CRS. Just on this data alone.
Yeah, it's very good. All right. So this concludes the meeting. Thank you for everybody attending. Remember, if you're elected, stay on. We're going to have a very quick steering meeting. But for everyone else, have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. Maybe do a little shoveling. Maybe just drink some cocoa. It's your call. And you'll see us in May. We'll put something together. And Jenny, thanks a lot for moderating.
Of course. Thank you, everyone. And stay tuned for everything exciting we have coming up.
All right, I'm going to stop recording.